One of the words that has become familiar to Florida State fans and even more so to the ACC, to their demise, is discovery. And maybe we've got some more discovery. Florida State making some demands, and it would certainly be mighty interesting for all of us to see their latest demand come to fruition. Welcome to Florida State Seminoles Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by as always. We typically have three of the best, but we're going to get by with two of the best tonight. We got big game, James Coleman, Florida State fullback, 2002 to 2005. You know him, Den Media Group, and we will catch up with James on everything that he's got for you. But, of course, catch up with him, Den Media Group, and Georgitis, the Renegade Report, one of the fastest-growing sites out there, and for good reason, all over Florida State football. George, we appreciate you being here as well. And here we've got another saga. I've been these early days of spring practice. Most of my shows, I do my due diligence and Google searches and looking around for any kind of news from spring practice and that sort of thing. And there's basically nothing, and trying to dig up stuff. But with Florida State, hey, here we go. Just about 3 or 4 hours ago. Now I'm reading from the fan-sided. No, this is actually Fan Nation Nole Game Day. There we go. Our buddies at Nole Game Day, Logan Robinson and the crew. George has just sent me the 55-page document, folks. We're going to spare you that one, but I do appreciate that because I will thumb through that a little bit later. So here are the highlights, folks, just down today. Okay. Basically, of course, Florida State snubbed from the college football playoff. How much did the ACC know about that? How much did they know leading up to that? Recent developments have tied the two moments together legally in regards to, the selection of the college football playoff, and then the FSU Board of Trustees suing the ACC to challenge the grant of rights, and maybe what were some of those conversations and some of those actions being made between those two big events? Well, since Election Sunday in early December, cries of collusion between ESPN and the college football playoff have circulated into a wide-ranging plethora of theories regarding what happened behind the scenes. Okay, so you've got Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody sent a civil investigative demand to the CFP Selection Committee in early January, demanding, quote, all communications to or from the SEC, the ACC, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, oh yes, the NCAA, of course, and ESPN, and all 10 conferences in the FBS, as well as the compensation of committee members. Okay, Moody's office also called for a public release of the multimedia agreement between the ACC and ESPN. The 2014, that was the amended multimedia agreement, the grant of rights, as well as any other executed agreements between the ACC and the Walt Disney Company. And to fuel the flames of that possibility, ESPN accused Florida State of potentially committing a felony in late February. Had not heard of this, for attempting to unseal the textbook trade secrets, of the ACC's grant of rights deal. One last point in this would be, since those two moments existed in the same timeline, Florida State University has never addressed these two instances as possibly related event. However, in recent developments, ongoing lawsuits between the ACC and FSU, the public institution is requesting, quote, here's the crux of it right now, all documents and communications related to the decision by the CFP committee to exclude Florida State, as reported by Skip Foster, president of PR firm Hammerhead Communications and former publisher of the Tallahassee Democrat. How about that?
Yeah, the main thing is, and I haven't had time to read through this entire thing, but we did a big show on it yesterday. Basically what this is the response to the ACC's 41 different objections for discovery and everything they said basically that Florida State had no grounds on. What you mentioned was at the top of what the ACC put forward, saying that pretty much everything that AG Moody asked for was beyond the scope. Everything is either past the statute of limitations or premature. It's either or. There's nothing there in that Goldilocks range for them. So, of course, Florida State came out, and again, it seems like every time, and maybe it's just homerism, but when you read through these things, Florida State goes to particular points. They point exactly their issues with the ACC, what they think was wrong, where they want to look. But all of the kind of ACC's responses, like we were kind of talking about off air, has just been kind of boilerplate, the same words. They're just doing semantics and arguing the definitions of all these terms. The big thing they used is unduly burdensome. That was the big thing they kept saying. So basically trying to say, oh, well, we can't get every single email, every single this. So it's a pretty strong response. And the thing that's great about it is how fast it was. I mean, ACC filed this thing out of the blue yesterday. We get it last second, and then 24 hours later, boom, FSU files its response and has brilliantly executed kind of a much shorter version of what the ACC provides, but succinct and to the point. And they really point out all these different areas. The fact that they went out and sued us prematurely without getting the signatures, and you just go on the line, all the different things. One of the things that people bring up is statute of limitations. They love bringing that up, but they've opened this thing up over and over again. The most recent dates being 2021, as recently as 2023, like I just mentioned when they filed suit. So there's a ton of stuff in there, and curious what y'all think about it for sure.
Well, we definitely want to hear from James. And I know that my thinkings might be a little bit skewed because I listen to you guys and you guys know what you're talking about. But of course, you hit this from a certain angle. But it seems like Florida State is ahead of the game at every turn, James.
Well, it seems that way. And it's because FSU has a case, and it's what we've been saying for quite some time, even though nobody else really did that. One of the best things that you can see in any kind of legal drama or court or stuff like that is the people who have to like expound and have it the people who have to keep talking are the ones who don't have a case. And that's really what ESPN and what the ACC have done numerous times. And all FSU does is respond. It's also some things that the ACC and those guys are doing. So it wasn't really out the blue, George. It was more so the last thing that it was the last possible moment that they could file this. Right. That's typically what happens a lot more in law. Like you get a certain amount of days to file something. Nobody files it on that day. You file it on the last possible day. And then normally what happens, because lawyers get paid by the hour or billable, our guys will wait, but we're trying to expedite this process. So you pop this out and boom, we're already ready. To quote my speech and debate teacher in high school and a guy by the name of Harvey Specter from Suits, two different people said the same thing. But if you can't argue both sides of an argument, then you don't know either one of them well enough to be able to speak on it. And what happens is Florida State knows exactly what they're going to do. You have to know what the counter is going to be you have to know what the punch is going to be thrown in order for you to be able to counter. And, those are just some things of that nature that I would know. Now, coming to it, the reason why, again, we're in the state of Florida, and they've got and a guy who you really all should follow if you want to see, because he'll have a slight slant, seeing as he's a triple Florida State graduate, is Doug Rohan, and Rohan Law PC at ROHAN Law PC. And he basically, not only, for those who want to know, this is what I love. He cites his work. He actually, there's a 55-page document that you can actually have. And he's a lawyer, and you can actually go in there. And if you enjoy these kind of things, you'll be able to see how he goes and shows the retorts in which Florida State came back and basically got all up in their ass. But it really all comes down to, and it's not helping with the college football playoff things. I don't know if you noticed that, Mark, where basically the ACC and the Big 12 both signed off on taking a lesser percentage than what the Big 10 and the SEC did. That's not helping their case of a lack of fiduciary responsibility to the conference. Also, There's this thing called case law. And if you're going to sue somebody in the state, you have to be able to show where they're examples. So Florida's so the ACC says that they scheduled a meeting to act against Florida State, a meeting that nobody was there to vote for. Now they did it later, and people voted for it. The problem is in the state of Florida, there's been cases that have already been beat like this with the places that I hate, which are HOAs. You can't act on something and then have a retroactive vote to basically say we're okay with us acting on it. So again, they're going to lose in the state of Florida as well because you went counter to what you need to be. And to be honest with you, you don't need to be a legal expert to be able to say, hey, you can't do something and then go back and try to cover your tracks. Not legally, not when you break your own bylaws. And that's basically what the ACC has done. And that's just common sense. And unfortunately, common sense isn't always common. And you got to go the legal route to be able to, get out of some of the circumstances in which you're in. But right now, it really does seem like Florida State is going to be Florida State's, again, in the driver's seat. Every time they try to do something, Florida State literally comes back and does that.
Absolutely. They try to say, why it can't, why that this discovery is premature or why this different discovery falls flat. They have all these different reasons, and they have one of our lawyer friends, mentioned the document. It's kind of like a boilerplate thing that ACC had in their suit describing each of the 41 motions of discovery. It was the same thing that I mentioned earlier. Undue hardship, too burdensome of a load of discovery and stuff like that. And that's the big difference in Florida State's motions. Every single one, they attack each article, each motion, they come with specific reasons, things that happened. In the ACC's motion, it just says, oh, well, we should seal anything to do with John Skipper, anything to do with John Swafford, Chad Swafford. They want the whole kit and caboodle. They don't give, oh, well, you don't get his cell phone records because this is personal and he has a wife and this and that. No, they pretty much admit like everything that's going on through their motion, their objections. They're basically saying, okay, well, there's this bad thing in there, but you're not supposed to be allowed to see it. So that's breaking a trade secret for you to see it. So we can't bring it out here, but we promise we didn't do anything wrong. It's like, it's just, this thing is, we've talked about it before, and I've heard Doug and, we've talked to all the different lawyers about it. This is, as much as it's fun to get lawyers on and break everything down, I think at the end of the day, this stuff, it's being fought out. It's a perception war, and, all these motions back and forth in the press. I think it's just Florida State is just slowly but surely gaining and gaining. And you see it by the way the national media is covering it. We were all conspiracy theorists a couple months ago, Chris and James for like 2 years now. But all of a sudden, every single outlet's covering it. The kind of inevitable is there. Now the fringe conspiracy is the FSU is going to the SEC instead of the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they ripped them to shreds yet again, just providing specific examples of just complete mismanagement.
What's wild is you're now starting to see that, again, Clemson is being rumored to be gearing up and getting ready to sue. North Carolina, was it about a month or maybe a month and a half ago, started making their statements again. People are all gearing up for the inevitable. And this is why I say it's never going to see the light. It's not going to see the inside of a courtroom. And if it does, it won't see one very long because you're going to have to battle a lot of people. And what's crazy is, say Florida State goes in and loses this one, right? There's going to be chinks in the armor that are going to be found. You're not going to beat everybody. North Carolina might see something and they'll be able to exploit it. Clemson and South Carolina courts going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to go in every aspect. And again, once it goes to court in the state of Florida, and I love telling people this, it's just something unique to the state of Florida. It's our Sunshine State laws. It's what happens when you sue a government entity. You shouldn't have done it. Don't do business with a government entity if you don't want your business being put out there. But I know this, the minute that Florida State goes in there, you, Mark Rogers, George, there's a sheet of paper. They'll even walk you through it. on how you can go do it. And now we all get to go see your dirty laundry when you don't want that. Now, if we get to a situation where if it goes to trial, we'll know what documents they have, because you're going to have to do this thing, amendments. You're going to have to put up you're going to have to present your case, and you're going to have to be able to. And what's beautiful about it is you're going to have to line item it. So you're going to have to be able to say, we want to attack page 5, line 35, or paragraph this where it states this. So it's not even like it's really hard. Like, I don't know exactly what I want to see based upon what Florida State is going to do. And then now we get to report about it. Now it only makes you – now ESPN will be fine in the long run. They're a big enough entity where they can take this. But the ACC in of itself, if they want to be a viable conference and they're okay with the little bit of money that they're going to get from the college football playoff, they got to go ahead and try to just move on. That would be what's best for them.
This is a life support thing for Raycom. Like, ESPN's going to be fine. College football is going to be fine. Florida State's going to be fine. Clemson's going to be fine. But eventually, at the end of this thing, at the end of the road, there's a Raycom that's left holding the bag, and ACC as well, whether they want to move on as a G5 conference or a relegation league or whatever the case may be. But while James was talking, he mentioned something that reminded me of another big part of us that we haven't mentioned yet. So another big part that FSU rebukes in this thing from the ACC's filing is that they basically say, oh, well, the ACC doesn't have an office in Florida. Our office is in North Carolina. We don't do business in Florida. We don't meet any of the minimum requirements. And I don't have it in front of me, but there's 5 different minimum requirements. You have to either have an office, do business with somebody, yada, yada. But it's very minimal things. Like, just pretty much if you've ever, done any kind of sales or stuff in Florida, that these are applicable there as far as bringing you to court. And does it make sense now that they took all those conference championships out of Orlando and said never again? It's scheduled everything in North Carolina for the next 20 years. You've got a team in Florida State and you've got a team in Miami that are, one of them is really your bread and butter. And then when you look at Miami, they're like, number 3 or 4 on the list. So, I mean, you're talking about has to be a good 35, 40%, of your entire pie is wrapped up in the state of Florida. You've held multiple conference championships games there, and they've got all these different things lined out. That's not getting by.
They were heavily petitioning to move the league offices to Orlando just a year ago. And man, if they would have done that, they would have really been in trouble. But, again, it's just the ACC it is what it is.
The one thing you went to with the court situation, and this not going to court because of everything that James outlined, about this time last year, there was San Diego State, the Pac-12, they were on the verge of there being some legal issues, and a lot of stuff was discovered. And it was just fascinating to read the timeline of breakdowns of communication in the Pac-12 at that point, trying to save itself, add some additional schools. And you could follow the timeline of the communications and figure out who dropped the ball or what was miscommunicated or what kind of power play was made. That pales in comparison, even though I thought that was one of the more fascinating situations, the demise of the Pac-12 and how all that went down. And it shouldn't have happened if they would have capably run their conference, because anyway, that's ancient history now. But to see this, if this would go to court, I would be so fascinated as an outsider. I'm not even a Florida State guy, but to see the communications and what would be pointed to that was being said, and conversations and documents that went back and forth, email communications, whatever it is, concerning holding Florida State down. We'll never see it. Well, I shouldn't say we'll never see it, but maybe not officially see it in the next couple of years. But that would be just beautiful.
Man, that would be amazing. It's what we all want. We want the dirt. I mean, look at what the situation with Gruden. One guy, one little thing. All the treasure trove of information that came around that. You deal with a Florida State in the ACC. I mean, it's just it would be an amazing thing, like a Suits episode. So we pray and hope and pray we get it. But The big date I'm looking at is March 22nd, because they have a chance, and Jen, my co-host, believes this a little bit more than I am, a little bit more skeptical, but there's a chance that judge could stay the case in North Carolina, dismiss it, grant Florida State's motion to dismiss. I'm not there. I don't think there's a chance of that happening on that particular date, but there's a good chance it could possibly get stayed. And that if that happens, and the focus really goes on the state of Florida in this particular case, that has a legit hearing date, a hearing where you go in the court and, the judge is going to actually order discovery, order the way that this thing is going to unfurl, not just all these motions and things, getting prepared for that. You could see settlement talks, right? I mean, you're talking about a 9-day period between the 22nd and then when you come up for the Florida court date. So do you have discovery? Do you have settlement talks there between the 22nd and the 9th if that happens? And also, you mentioned Clemson. What are they waiting on? I mean, they've been preparing for years for this. They've been really hard the last couple months looking into it. So they have to know. You talked about looking at, from the outset at the Pac-12 situation. Look at the NCAA situation where Florida State takes its medicine and then the next 3 people decide to sue and the NCAA throws their hands up. We don't have the resources. Like, if every school in the NCAA sues us, there's nothing we can do. Well, it's kind of the same thing with the ACC. When Clemson put that pressure, they could end it. Like, literally, I think if Clemson filed suit within a week, it would be over, because it's all they're going to be able to do to have a chance to maybe beat Florida State. If another Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, whoever it may be, jumps in, it would seems like it would kill it, because you've also got 2 states. If they file suit before this is resolved on which state, which court will be of precedence, then they're setting up defenses in South Carolina and North Carolina, and, Georgia and North Carolina, and on and on.
Florida State Seminoles live, everyone. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, with James, with George, typically Chris Frazier, Spear Addicts. Join him as always. Let's catch up with these guys before we keep going. We got James. What's going on there at Den Media Group?
Not much, man. Just on the YouTube did something weird a couple weeks ago where I guess they were either correcting some things, but a lot of subs. I lost about 200 subs, but we gained them back. But we're still on the road to trying to get to 6,000. So we're 592 away. Obviously, like anybody knows, once we get to that 6,000 mark, we do cash prizes and giveaways. So we'll do a live on the show. We also, Den Media Group, renewed their season tickets. So that means on Wednesdays during the football season, we'll give away, for our home games, we'll give away a pair of tickets to each one of those home games. If by some magical chance, because my goal this year is to get to 10,000 subs and 500 members. If by some magical chance we get to 10,000 subs before football season, I will give away a pair of season tickets to FSU home games, as well as a parking pass. So you'll get 2 tickets, all those different things, just really gearing up for the season and the spring game family reunion tailgate. So it's $20 throughout the month of March. You can go check at Big Game James _36. It's my pinned tweet. That's where the link is. You go check that out. The spring game tickets are going to be limited because they're doing construction inside the stadium. But even if you can't make it to the game, make it to the tailgate. It's going to be dope. It's going to be fun. That's basically just what we're doing. And also, I want to give a major shout out to all the Den Media listeners. We got a chance. We raised about $1,000 spur of the moment for Special Olympics in Gadsden County. Somebody fell through with their promise to make sure that those athletes were well hydrated and had to have basically Powerade, water, juice, and snacks. So what we did was, I called a connection with the company that's not necessarily Florida State affiliated, but the person who I had to call is affiliated with is a Florida State grad. So they sponsored, they sent some powder over there for them and some coolers. And then again, as a Den Media Group fans, we sent over there, man. Those kids were smiling. They actually got enough stuff for the next 2 or 3 events that they actually do. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody being so generous, especially during times when inflation and everybody got their own problems. But I appreciate y'all stepping up for those who are less fortunate.
These stadium renovations, are those anything that are going to be noticeable for the fans?
Shit. Yeah, we got the whole home sideline is gone. Hey, now, the cool thing is if you go to like Seminoles.com, you can see it's up to the date, like showing the transformation. Like so Doak has never sat more than 85,000. I've played in Doak and that's standing room only. So like that's not the official count has always been like 82, 83,000. If they want to pack people in, they can get 85. Now, what that doesn't take account for people is suites and press box. So there's a lot more people there than that. So I think when it's all said and done, Doak will seat 72,000, I believe. But that doesn't take into account for the new stadium suites. And like there's still going to be a massive amount of people in Doak. And the cool thing is Doak was never built like everybody, like the big house and all. It started off as, if you think about the old school high school stadiums with the bleachers that expand out, that's what Doak went actually. And the reason why, even though there's much argument to it being named after this guy, considering he's probably rolling over in his grave that I played at Florida State. But the only reason it's named after him is because he's the one who found the land and helped raise the funds for Florida State to actually have a football stadium. So I cannot agree with the person, but also understand why. Like, that's a pretty important feat, you know what I'm saying? But we never knocked it down and started from scratch. We only built, they used to call it the erector set. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time in the history, since the 1950s, where they're actually taking the opportunity to build it the way that it needs to be built. So it's probably going to end up being louder with 72,000 people than it was with 85. And Doak really got loud already, but it was never as loud as it could be. And I'll put it in perspective. I have this video from the Notre Dame game, and somebody was at the top of the Capitol. You can basically see the whole city, but you can see Doak from the top of the Capitol, and it was amazing. It was well lit, but somebody had a video from inside. It's like you're talking about I'd say 5 miles away from the stadium. You can hear how loud Doak was on that game from the Capitol, all the way at the top, and you can see it. It was an incredible video. So, like I said, it's gonna look gorgeous. It'll be a great stadium when it's on.
I was pulling up some info and pics while you were saying that. 1950 was when Doak Campbell Stadium was built. See some old school pictures there of when it was just, it's got that high school stadium look with the complete open ends at that point. Yep. Good stuff. George, what's going on there at the Renegade Report?
Fun times. We just hit 2,200 subscribers. So we're trying to get to about 3,000 by the time we hit the season. Me and Jen just had a big show breaking down this whole thing, the ACC's 41 objections and what Florida State was likely going to bring forward, what it meant, all the different dates. So that was yesterday. Go check that one out. That was a big hit. Hoping that one hit about 5,000 views. And then we had Brian McFadden on. We were lucky to have him on Sunday. We've got, I don't know if I'm not allowed to announce who we've got Sunday, but we've got another former player coming on Sunday. So we got a couple things in the works, looking at maybe starting a little shorter show, like a 30-minute show for fun. So all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to be at the tailgate, hanging out and helping Chris, CJ, and James with that whole deal over there in Tallahassee. So look, I'm here to tell you, anything that James and Chris and these guys have said about this tailgate, I promise you they're underselling it. Okay, I was there last year. You got to think last year, Chris, James, we've all had like explosive growth. It's been amazing. These guys were 4,000 subscribers last year, and it was huge. I met Snoop Menace. I met Peter Warwick. I met Kenny Shaw, James Wilder Jr., Carlos Williams, E.G. Green. Did I say Snoop Menace? My favorite player of all time. But like, it's unreal. You're going to get to meet blue chip recruits. I met Cam Davis, Luke Cromenhawk, Camden Fryer, all these guys at the spring game last year. Parents, coaches. I got to meet Coach Tony Tokars. A couple different coaches stopped by, different celebrities that were in the house. It's going to be an amazing experience. And if you've got a kid I believe they have super like 12 and unders free or something. They have super affordable prices for kids, and for March it's only $20. So make sure you get over there and buy tickets to the spring game. Me, Jen, Chris, CJ, James, we all want to see you guys out there. It's going to be a ton of fun, and make sure you get to Tallahassee. It's at 4:00, so the game. So make sure you're there before noon or around noon to start partying up.
4:00 on the 20th. Okay, might have to make a day of it there. Why Snoop Menace?
Snoop Menace. So, I got asked this question on yesterday's live stream. Somebody asked how me and Jen became fans of Florida State. So I'm going to age myself. I was born in 91. So when I became a Florida State fan, it was those Winky, Peter Bork, but Snoop Menace. When I was a kid, I didn't realize, I don't know what it was. Like, I didn't realize the P-Dub thing. Maybe that was a little bit, I don't know, for whatever reason. I like the name Snoop. I don't know if I like Snoop Dogg or Snoopy the cartoon, but Snoop Menace was my dude. And I, just remember seeing those first ever like YouTube highlights on like AOL dial up of him catching long touchdowns and stuff. And I get mixed up. I think it's the Tennessee game or the Oklahoma game. He didn't get to play due to grades or some BS.
Oklahoma.
And
Right.
yeah, I swear to this day, we win that game by 2 touchdowns if Snoop and a couple other guys played that should have played. But yeah, that's it. That's why Snoop's my dude. And you want to talk about one of the nicest, most gracious, humble guys ever. You're talking about a year ago. I hadn't even started the video podcast. At that time, I just had the little website, write my articles. I had released, done a couple audio podcasts, and we were lined up to do the post-game show. But like I said, hadn't even been on video, and those guys were all super supportive. And Snoop and Kenny in particular really they couldn't have been more awesome for somebody that they didn't know from Adam, and really cool stuff. So yeah, make sure y'all get out there for that tailgate. It'll be a lot of fun.
Very cool. I'm seeing here that Sean McGuire accepted, I thought it was going to be a Florida State position with a Big 12 program. Okay. Was he with Florida State? I know he was as a player. He backed up Jameis Winston, of course, but
I don't know if he GA'd with us or not.
I don't know.
Was he there for 1 year with Jimbo? I could be
appears
mistaken.
so.
Don't let me lie. I know he graduated around 15 or 16. No.
He was a GA at Texas A&M from 2018 to 22.
Yeah, so it was the very first year after he left.
As soon as I see that name, I'm thinking of 2 games. I'm thinking of, was it the Clemson game when Jameis Winston had to sit out the first half? Was that a Sean McGuire game, I think? And then I'm also thinking Peach Bowl against Houston.
We can talk about the Clemson one first.
Do I got it, James?
Yeah, Clemson game, he had to play the whole game on some BS, but again, folding.
James Winston didn't come in the second half? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I thought he
was supposed to, and then it got
to. Originally, the suspension was a half a game. Jimbo did that. Our athletic director came over top and suspended him for a full game, which is really what led to a lot of the turmoil during that Jimbo Fisher era. Just not having as I call it as a Godfather guy, not having a wartime consigliere behind you, backing you. Like, actually, the pressure to suspend Jameis for even that game was really just outside noise. I mean,
that kind of set off an era,
statute of limitations. And as crazy as the older you get, like, you go back, they suspended him for that. Like Chris Ricks got suspended for oversleeping an exam. And he did some other different things, but like the scandals that Chris Ricks got involved in during my time pale in comparison to what guys are actually doing now and not even getting suspended for. But yelling in the student union, as I joke with some guys, luckily camera phones didn't exist like that when I was there. I remember I had one of the first ever camera phones, and it was just like you had to get an attachment, so it just wasn't very good. But if we had videos of some of the things that we did, the fisticuffs and the rambunctious behavior of us, we would probably be we'd be under the jail. So I'm grateful for that. But they suspended him and McGuire did very well. We ended up we won the game, but I'm not going to lie. It ended up coming back to bite us like a year or two later with the cut block on Freddie that wasn't a cut block. But I won't lie to you. It was a play. I can't remember exactly.
Carlos Williams catches the bobble. Was it Carlos Williams catches the bobble?
We might have got over. We might have got over on a couple plays in that game. But the Peach Bowl, that's what I realized how I don't even know who the other quarterback is. I don't want to know who the other quarterback is.
JJ Cosentino.
I just know he was awful. He was awful. Sean McGuire had one leg. Like he dang near broke his ankle. And they put JJ in, and JJ couldn't do one snap was enough for Jameis to say, we're better off with a quarterback with one leg.
Had this man in a full leg cast in the second half. They're playing quarterback. Oh, my God. Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Speaking of Jameis, Cleveland Brown, y'all think he gets that starting job? The way Deshaun's been lately, I think with, Jameis's consistency, I don't know how long it'll take, but I think he can get that. What do you think, James?
Too much money. Like, Deshaun is guaranteed bread. Like, the only way now, because, again, I joke with people. Salary, again, NFL cap, my NFL hat. Salary cap is a fictional number that only exists when they want it to. They figured out ways now that they'll say it's a bonus. Or like they'll figure out how to give you what's guaranteed to you so that they don't have to take that hit. But right now, Deshaun just is too much accounted for to the cap for them to not utilize him unless he gets hurt. So I think it's BS the way Jameis has been treated. I get what Tampa did. You get a chance. I'm taking Tom Brady over Jameis every day and all day too. But you don't go 31. Like he threw 30 interceptions. He also threw 32 touchdowns, if I remember correctly. Like that's a lot. It's a lot of interceptions. A lot of time. And those interceptions weren't like they have a video of 16 of those interceptions being just the most unlucky interceptions that ever happened in your life. Like balls batted right to the other defense. And I think if somebody would have given him a true chance, I think he'd be fine. I think it's with the power of the media. Like everybody tries to make you dislike this guy because he's awkward. But every teammate that he's ever had absolutely adores Jameis Winston. The people in New Orleans absolutely adore Jameis. Jameis is why I think you don't put as much emphasis on your quarterback being the leader of your team. Leaders naturally show up, and they can be in any position. And it's not that Jameis isn't a leader. Jameis just ain't the guy that I want talking all the time. Because Jameis is country, and I also think, in my opinion, I think he has Asperger's. And if you look at him, he's socially awkward, but he is he's a guy who got accepted into Stanford. The kid is brilliant, and the kid knows football. It's just I don't necessarily want him giving the speech. The post-game speech. Like I might want him listening and encouraging it, but I don't want him talking. That's the only thing I'll say about James.
Damn neighbors riding around on his dirt bike. But no, I agree. That ACL in New Orleans, I mean, that was just terrible. I feel like if he could have played out that season, that would have been his ticket, and he'd had his pick between 5 or 6 starting jobs the next year. I think he was 7 touchdowns and no picks or something, started off the year. But it's a shame that had to happen. But yeah, hope the best. I guess with all of Deshaun's issues and injuries and stuff, I'll have to look it back. But I just don't think the last 5 years, he's got a good percentage on games played. So when he was in New Orleans, it seemed like Peyton wasn't missing games, and then after that, Dennis Allen just was not going to play him. I don't have a ton of problems with how Sean Payton handled the situation, but that BS with Dennis Allen last year was a joke. Anybody that was watching that thing knew that that was their chance to win was Jameis, and they refused to give it to him. But I digress.
Hey Jen, good to see you. Nice to have you in the chat. George is talking you up as being the brains of the operation, so we know that he's at least telling the truth tonight. So it's good to know. It is good to know. And if we can carve out some time, this can pretty much happen anytime. But I'm thinking of two great live streams. One, like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, the whole Jimbo Fisher from 2013-14 to the demise and into Willie Taggart and how that went down with Jimbo Fisher, because I would love to hear the insight on that, because there's a lot of great stories and dirt involving that whole thing and blame to pass around on both sides. And then the other one would be a Mount Rushmore to get together on. Maybe we go position by position and then we break it down. We get everybody in the chat to throw out their candidates and we do a Mount Rushmore Florida State. That would be fun.
I love it. There's plenty of guys to choose from, that's for dang sure. And that was especially coming off the kind of 2006 to 2009 Tebow years. It was 2010 through 2017 was a hell of a ride with old Jimbo. It's one of those things. I bet it's kind of like how Florida people feel about Urban Meyer at this point. It's like we got the championships, all the dirty stuff. It is what it is.
I think Jimbo. Well, I was ready for Jimbo to go until 2012. I was like, hey man, y'all fired. Y'all got rid of the old man. The old man could have done this. As far as losing and not winning ACCs, but he turned it around. There's a lot of redeeming qualities. Things happen. It's one of the things that I think people get lost in sports. You lose the humanity of just in general, entertainment and all of that stuff. Jimbo went through a major life-changing moment, and we all got to see it kind of live, and that's very embarrassing. Divorce happens, cheating happens, infidelity happens. Nobody wants it to be painted, and you have to deal with it. And Tallahassee ain't the biggest town in the world, so like everywhere you go, you kind of hear it. You're reminded of it. In Tallahassee. There was Mayor Marks, but Mayor Marks wasn't the most known person in Tallahassee. Jimbo Fisher was the head football coach at Florida State, is the most well-known person with a teenage son that was there, with another son that's going through a fatal or not a fatal, because he's doing very well. I believe he got a scholarship somewhere to kick. I think it's to Sanford, if I remember correctly. But you had Ethan that was sick. Those are on top of being in a pressure cooker and things going downhill. And I think had he just left and just said, I have 75 million reasons why I'm leaving Florida State. Because again, at the time, 7.5 million. It's just, and that's why. Oh God, I don't know if you guys saw the Nick Saban thing is so. It bothers me to my core, and I like Nick Saban more now. But like, $7.5 million was a lot of money to give a guy with one natty. But we knew we couldn't match that. So go on, be blessed, do that. But the way he left by making it just see, and he told some truths on the way out. But I think that's what made it hard for people to have to go and recover. And I think Coach Norvell winning an ACC championship, having us in the college football playoff discussion, even though we got snubbed, he keeps winning. I think it'll be a good opportunity for Jimbo to come back. It's easy to accept your ex when your life is great and their life isn't. But like when he's over there at Texas A&M and he looks like he's flourishing and they keep giving him more money, like that would have never. It's just like the same thing with Urban. Florida fans are liking Urban a little bit more now that he, failed with the Jags.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably more welcome to have him back. But I think Jimbo was cool. Tag, even though I saw Tag at the combine, that man is well rested. And skin's good, teeth white, having a great time in the NFL, just getting paid. Most useless position coach on the field is a running backs coach. So like, and especially when you have Lamar Jackson. Nobody do we really care who the Ravens running back is when we all know it's really Lamar Jackson? Even though he's a good quarterback too, but we know he's going to run when he wants to. So those are the fun things about what's going down with that.
James, if we had time tonight, but let's put that on the back burner, maybe for next week, the Nick Saban comments, because I want to hear from you. I think we traded a couple posts on Twitter. I think we're on the same page when it comes to that, but I'm sure there's a lot to dive into there. So I'm good for saving that conversation because I want to let that thing breathe and give it enough time.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, where else it goes. I was told there's been like 3 different, like not committee, but like discussions. And I talked about it on my show today. It was just, I was like, it's interesting. Very interesting.
All right, guys. Thanks for making it happen. I'm going to throw out, since we got a few minutes, I'm going to throw out one name. Spring practice starts when?
April or March 19th,
19th.
excuse me.
19th.
Okay,
Next
so we're about a
Tuesday.
week away. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're about a week away. Hykeem Williams. What do you think, George? It just seems like this is
I'm
the guy
fired up,
everybody's
man.
been waiting for.
Oh yeah. Well, there's people that put together these highlight videos. They look and find out who the draft prospects are. And several of them made highlights of Keon Coleman and interspersed in there's 2 or 3 different Hykeem Williams plays. I mean, he's just that kind of athlete. He's got the size, he's got the top end speed, he's got the agility. He's just that freak of nature outside wide receiver that, like you said, it's been a while till we had Keon Coleman this year. So hopefully we can keep it rolling. And I think he's going to make some big time steps. I don't know if he's your number 1 tip top guy this year. Maybe that's 2025, but he's going to be a big factor. Who knows? He could end up winning a starting role before the end of the year is over with, but he will definitely make some big plays. Speaking of Keon, and y'all brought up the Ravens and Lamar, I would love to see him go over there. I think that would be a perfect fit. But yeah, Hykeem Williams, he was coming out of high school. He was kind of raw, not raw in that like, he's put together. He studies his craft. He's a beast of a wide receiver, but to be such a large guy, the kind of ability to cut and run routes and things like that, it's a little harder than a guy like Van Dravius Jacobs, who showed up out of high school like an NFL route runner, like route tree, just off the book. You see it as soon as he got on campus. Well, Hykeem Williams is starting to put all that together. Figure out all the different calls, because like Mike Norvell, all of his pass patterns, they all have checks and stuff similar to what Jimbo Fisher does, but somehow Mike Norvell makes it a lot more simple. So yeah, I think Hykeem Williams will definitely have a breakout year this year, and I'm a big fan.
James, when you look at Hykeem Williams, what do you see?
I mean, big, fast, physical. You can definitely see pro guy. Good hands, catch rate. He's Keon with more speed. And I don't think he'll be the number 1 guy per se. I think he'll be the big play catch guy. And when I told people, I look at it like this. You got was it Jaylen Brown? Make sure I'm saying his name right. Big from LSU that transferred in. Freshman, basically. We got 2 of the best freshman wide receivers that were in the nation last year. But Jaylen is the guy that's take the top off the defense guy, much like Malik Benson, who came in from Alabama. That's the guy we want. If I'm not doing this to spite Miami fans, but when we think about when Florida State went down to Miami last time, we had Pokey Wilson ran that post route, take the top off of the defense, keep them honest. We didn't have that guy last year. Johnny was a big guy to catch, big catch radius guy. Keon was an exciting catch guy, could run decent routes and get separation when things were ran right. But neither one of those were guys that were just going to run yourselves open. So now you got that guy Malik. Even if Malik gets 600 yards, but his job is just to run people off. Now you mix him in and he's taller than Ja'Kai Douglas. Ja'Kai Douglas is more built like a running back. That's why he played running back in the bowl game. But again, he's a fast guy, but it's different when you got 6'2" in a 4.4 as opposed to 5'10" in a 4.4. Bigger catch radius. So you got him mixed in. You get your guy, which everybody stopped talking about him. We didn't even know if the kid really existed. Then he finally comes, and everybody's kind of like, forgetting about a wide receiver from Destin Hill. like Destin Hill. So you get him, you got Destin Hill, and those are guys that believe. Like I joke with my friends, let's do the easy visualization. 4 verticals. Hey, you two run as fast as you can. Take what you can take with you. And now you got the big 6'3". What is I got his numbers here. It's getting bigger too. What's King? Yep, 6'2". That boy's like 220 right now. You got the big 6'2", 220-pound guy that's going to run a drag, or he's going to run a dig route across the middle. Your safety's occupied. He's got to keep an eye on Benson because his corner's getting cooked. And now you got this big joker right here, and he catches it. And then this big joker gets moving. We saw what he did with the screen. Now all of a sudden, man, it's a lot of business decisions that get made back there in that secondary. That's why I tell guys, and you got a quarterback with a live arm in DJU. We don't have a jersey guy right now. Like a guy that, like if my son knew he wanted Keon Coleman's jersey after the LSU game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we knew Trey Benson. We saw what Trey Benson. That's why I say it's more like 2022 than 2023. But man, these rooms are way better from top to bottom. I think George said it in a post or something. Our bottom 40 is so much better than what it was the last 2 years. And our top 40 is just uncertain right now. But our worst players are better. So obviously that increases your floor. So, but I'm just really intrigued into what this season is going to be. But Hykeem is one of those guys that we got to have do well, because that helps you with your JD Frenches. That helps you with like the top wide receivers coming out in the next few classes. The only way to counteract it is to show them what the future is. Because man, I've seen Ohio State when Ohio State came in and laid out the case for Ohio State. Shoot, I wanted to play wide receiver for Ohio State too. Like I can't even get mad at the case that was presented. But all you can do is just show them how explosive the offense is and what the future looks like, and showing them how they can do that. But Hykeem is a key part of that.
We're back to 2022 experience-wise, but talent-wise, as he alluded to, double the blue chip ratio, talent across the board. And we don't have those jersey guys yet, but like James talked about with Keon Coleman after that LSU game, by the end of the year, we'll have our jersey guys, whether it's Destin Hill or Hykeem Williams or Malik Benson or whoever. It's coming, and it's going to be a lot of fun. This is by far and away the most talented team that Mike Norvell has had. Not now the top 12 guys, you can argue, as far as the guys heading to the draft, if you have those one by one. But when you look at the recruiting rankings and everything like that, yeah, everybody that is replacing somebody, they were a higher recruit, a better rated athlete than the person that they're taking place of. Now let's see what they can do with that clay. We've seen that we can do with the 3-star clay. Now that they're getting these 4 and 5 stars, let's see what they can turn them into. Can you have that same arc, that same development arc? Because if so, it's bad news for the rest of college football.
Folks, when you shop on Amazon, use the link that we provide in the description section. Here's the deal. This is the one way you can contribute to the voice of college football financially without spending a penny. Let Amazon do it. Do your Amazon shopping. Use our link. I was just going through this with somebody last night. They couldn't believe how easy it was. They still went to Amazon and still showed their name, their account. They were locked in on their account, but using our link. That's the one way you can help us support at the Voice of College Football. In the meantime, for all your Florida State coverage and beyond, Big Game James Coleman, Den Media Group, Georgitis, The Renegade Report, and of course, our buddy Chris Frazier out there, Spear Addicts. That's the place to be. And you guys are going to be live on Thursday night, correct?
Thursday at 7 Eastern. Or no, that's Spear Addicts. I'm sorry. Spear Addicts live Thursday at 7 Eastern. 8 Eastern. I'm fucking it all up.
And then you're coming up on Friday, right, George?
Friday at 7 Eastern.
And James, you're with Chris on Thursday, right?
Yep. And then we'll do our show. Then I do Big Games BS on Friday. I'm probably going to do some some spring ball position breakdowns, and I'll be at practice. I won't be there on the first. This will be my first time not being at the first day of spring ball in 5 years. Or I guess this will be year 6, but I'll be there on the second day. So I'll be there Thursday, the 21st, and check those guys out and let people know how I feel. You know, when I told people 2 years ago, like, this is the best first practice that I've seen in a while, it set the internet ablaze. And then, you know, last year I said something similar, and folks were like, you know, hey, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat how I feel about it. I mean, I don't get paid to lie. Like, the Florida State doesn't pay me. So, but at the end of the day, I'm all for it. I mean, I think this is going to be a good team, and people keep talking about. I think people being overcritical because we're in a troll culture. But if I told you it on any level, 3-to-1 touchdown to interception. Mark, you've watched a lot of football. 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio is pretty good, right?
Yep.
That's what DJU has had the last 2 years, and I'll argue with a much less talented team at Oregon State, and did not have the elite wide. Where Clemson's issue has been, and even why you still see old boy struggling right now. Clemson had elite wide receivers. Like, they don't have that guy right now, and they had an elite running back in Shipley, but like, even when you took DJU's ability to run away from them, that's really what you want to know why Florida State beat Clemson at home? We didn't have to fear quarterback running. That was the first time we played a while without having to worry about a quarterback being able to take off. And it's not that he wasn't athletic. It's just he wasn't DJU. He wasn't 250. Like, it's a big difference. As a guy who's hit people before, and I think a lot of people play video games too much. It's this thing called physics, like, and stuff like that. 250 fat, 250 solid is 250. And no matter how you hit it, you only want to hit it so many times, especially if it's coming at you full speed. So you don't need a guy to be a first round draft pick. We've seen that with Jordan Travis. Even if Jordan Travis was healthy, he wasn't going to be a first round draft pick. He's still probably going to be, from, which is crazy, the stuff that I heard at the combine, where he may get, where they're projecting him, is just insane to me, but in a good way. But if you have a guy that doesn't turn the ball over, scores points, and you play good defense with a good running game, from Pop Warner, flag football, all the way up to the NFL, you win a lot of football games like that. And I think we forget this in this sensationalized, soundbite media clip culture that we've grown accustomed to, that we don't realize that football is actually one of the simplest games that you could actually ever play. Score more points than the other team, and you get a W. And if you have more W's than you have L's, typically that means you're going to be okay.
All right, everyone. Every Wednesday, and we'll see you next week, 6 p.m. Eastern. For George, for James, I'm Mark. See you next time.